Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the life of one of history's most fascinating figures, Marcus Aurelius. You know, the Roman emperor, the philosopher-king, the guy who wrote Meditations, basically the OG Stoic rock star. Now, we all know the basics. Emperor of Rome lived by Stoic principles, gave us some seriously profound wisdom in Meditations. But have you ever stopped to wonder, what did a day in his life actually look like? We often picture him on the battlefield or making grand pronouncements, but what about the quieter moments? The everyday struggles and routines that shaped him into the Stoic icon we admire today? Because let's be honest, Stoicism can sometimes feel a little abstract. We read the quotes, we understand the concepts intellectually, but applying it to our real lives, that's where it gets tricky. And that's why today, we're going beyond the textbook definitions and stepping into a hypothetical but historically informed day in the life of Marcus Aurelius. We're going to explore the Stoic routine that most people don't talk about, the practical, gritty, sometimes even messy reality of living a virtuous life in a chaotic world. Because here's the thing, Marcus Aurelius wasn't just born a Stoic sage, he cultivated it, day in, day out, and his daily routine wasn't some rigid, inflexible system. It was a living, breathing practice designed to help him navigate the immense pressures and responsibilities of his life while staying true to his values. Think of it as his Stoic operating system, constantly running in the background, helping him make the best decisions and remain grounded even when the world was trying to throw him off course. Let's imagine the dawn in Rome, almost 2,000 years ago. No alarm clocks, no phone notifications, just the gentle light filtering into Marcus's chamber. One thing we know for sure about Marcus Aurelius, based on his own writings and historical accounts, is that he was an early riser. He believed in seizing the day, in making the most of every precious moment. And this wasn't just about productivity, it was a deeply Stoic principle. Time, he knew, was the most valuable resource we have, and wasting it was essentially wasting a part of our life. Instead of hitting snooze or reaching for his, well, they didn't have phones back then, but you get the idea. Instead of distractions, Marcus likely started his day with reflection. Think meditation, but Roman style. He wouldn't necessarily be chanting Om in a lotus position. His meditation was more about contemplation. He'd likely review his Stoic principles, reminding himself of the virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. He'd probably journal, not just about his feelings, though introspection was important, but about his intentions for the day. He'd ask himself, how can I be more virtuous today? How can I practice justice even in small interactions? How can I control my impulses and reactions? This morning practice wasn't about setting unrealistic goals or pressure. It was about premeditation of adversity. He'd mentally prepare himself for the challenges he might face, the difficult people he'd encounter, the unexpected setbacks in his work as emperor. And this wasn't to be pessimistic, but to be prepared, to rob these external events of their power to upset his inner peace. It's like building a mental shield before heading out into the world. A Stoic pre-game ritual, if you will. Then it was time to work. And Marcus Aurelius's work was, well, running the Roman Empire. Talk about a stressful job. He dealt with political intrigue, military campaigns, economic crises, you name it. But here's where his Stoicism really shone. For Marcus, work wasn't just about power or achievement. It was about duty. He saw his role as emperor as a responsibility to serve the people, to act for the common good. And this Stoic sense of duty transformed even the most mundane tasks into acts of virtue. Now, here's a key. often overlooked element of his Stoicism: negative visualization. It might sound depressing, but it's actually incredibly empowering. Marcus would remind himself of the impermanence of everything, even his own power and life. He'd contemplate the possibility of loss, of failure, of death. And by doing this, he didn't become morbid. Instead, he paradoxically increased his appreciation for the present moment. He realized how precious everything is, and how important it is to use his time and energy wisely, because it could all be taken away at any moment. It's like saying, okay, worst case scenario, this could all disappear. So how can I make the most of it now? Throughout his day, Marcus would also practice mindfulness, even though they didn't call it that back then. He'd constantly remind himself to focus on the present moment. When he was in meetings, he'd try to truly listen, not just think about his response. When he was dealing with difficult people, and as emperor he had his fair share, he'd remind himself of their shared humanity, their ignorance, and that judging them only hurt himself. He'd practice empathy and understanding, not just because it was nice, but because it was the virtuous and logical thing to do. And let's be real, being emperor couldn't have been all philosophical contemplation and virtue signaling. He faced frustrations. He made mistakes. He must have felt overwhelmed at times. But the beauty of Stoicism isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. It's about recognizing your flaws and striving to be better day after day. Marcus likely used journaling and self-reflection throughout the day, not just in the morning, perhaps quick notes in between appointments, or during a quiet moment in the gardens, continuously checking in with himself, course-correcting, and reminding himself of his Stoic principles. As evening approached, Marcus's routine would shift back towards reflection. He'd review his day, not in a self-critical way, but in a spirit of learning and growth. He'd ask himself, did I live up to my values today? Where did I fall short? What can I do better tomorrow? This evening review wasn't about beating himself up. It was about honest self-assessment and continuous improvement, a crucial part of the Stoic path. And before bed, Marcus would likely engage in what we might call evening meditation. He'd reflect on the events of the day, both good and bad. He'd practice gratitude for the good things, recognizing that even amidst challenges, there were always positives to be found. And he'd practice acceptance for the things he couldn't control, letting go of the day's worries and anxieties, preparing himself for restful sleep and a fresh start the next morning. So, there you have it. A glimpse into a possible day in the life of Marcus Aurelius. It wasn't a life of rigid rules or unattainable perfection. It was a life of continuous practice, of intentional living, guided by Stoic principles. And the amazing thing is, you don't need to be an emperor to apply these principles to your own life. Think about it. Starting your day with intention, focusing on what you can control, practicing mindfulness and self-reflection, embracing duty and virtue in your daily tasks, and ending the day with gratitude and acceptance. These are timeless practices that can bring more peace, resilience, and meaning to anyone's life, no matter what your empire looks like. What do you think? Which part of Marcus Aurelius's Stoic routine resonates with you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe for more explorations into philosophy and practical wisdom. Until next time, keep thinking stoically and keep living virtuously.